There's always a constant lesson around what are you good at? Where do you see the best customer value? What are you going to ignore or force yourself not to do that somebody's trying to get you to do that may be tangential to what your core values are?
Welcome to From the Ground Up, the podcast where we delve deep into the inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and their journey to build successful startups. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, and in each episode, I sit down with the founders to learn about their experiences, the challenges they faced, the lessons they've learned, and the insights they've gained while turning their dreams into reality. And super excited to have on today's episode Daniel Frey from Austin, Texas, who leads THG Energy, an innovative software as a service platform around energy data and technology. And let's get into you, Daniel. First of all, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jake. It's good to be here. Appreciate your time.
Great. So a little background on Daniel. Daniel has more than 30 years of experience in energy marketing and trading. In 2011, he led a group of investors to acquire THG Energy Solutions. Since then, he and the management team have dramatically expanded the company and its offerings in North America. And we'll dive into that a little bit more, but he does come from a good background in terms of education. He's a CPA and received his MBA from Oklahoma State University. So Dan, do you go by Dan or Daniel?
Dan is fine.
Dan. Okay, Dan. All right. Before we dive into your company, and we'll touch on that, we'll dive a little bit deeper. Tell me a little bit about you. Where are you from originally? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Yeah, grew up in Hutchinson, Kansas, which is right in the middle of Kansas. Had a great background. I'm the youngest of five siblings, and just had a great time growing up. My dad was in sales, and learned to appreciate discipline, sales, marketing, always doing what you're supposed to do. And so we had some great role models growing up, Midwestern background, was able to get involved in the energy business right out of school in oil and gas in Tulsa. Moved down to Tulsa in 1983. Essentially have been in the energy marketing, trading space for most of my career. Like your intro talked about a little bit, I was had an opportunity to get involved in more of the data side of energy management in 2011 with THG. Prior to that, I spent a lot of time with customers trying to help them understand their data, their energy management in particular, helping them purchase and structure natural gas or electricity agreements. These are large commercial, industrial customers that we're trying to save money and be more efficient. Saw lots of opportunities for savings and just a better product offering around energy management. So that's what kind of got us started in this path.
That's great. I'm going to take you back a little bit earlier than that. What was your very first job that you had? And not even in college, maybe even earlier than that.
Well, I always had to find my own money. So, paper route, at 12. And people kind of think that's an easy thing, but it was a morning paper route. So, people would start calling the house at 6:30 if they didn't get their paper, and you had to get it all delivered before school, and then you had to collect all the accounts, and you had to manage inventory in terms of number of papers that you had versus how many customers you had, and then focus on customer service and get things done. I really liked being independent. I liked being up at 5 a.m, riding my bike around town, throwing papers, and being able to leave the house and do that. So that was kind of my first job and my first kind of business that I had. I got to learn a lot about that. I ended up actually selling a lot of papers door to door, and then they actually gave me a job in college to be an accounting intern in the publishing company. So I learned a lot through the newspaper business. in Wichita, Kansas, and it was a good first entrepreneurial experience being a paper boy. So goes back to when I was 12.
Yeah, that's great. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs we've talked to that was their first job. And if you were to correlate that experience versus where you're at today, it seems very consistent, which is you have to have the consistency to do the job. You got to wake up early. You have to be on a schedule. You have high demand from your customers. Customer service is critically important. It's just the paper, but it's the start of someone's day. And then collecting, making sure that you're getting paid so that it actually makes sense for everybody. Really, a valuable job and experience. Going from that experience into college, when I think of energy, gas and oil and everything above, there's a lot of areas that it could go down and paths. I'm a huge Dallas Cowboy fan, and I know Jerry Jones at some point was in that space, and I don't know the particulars of exactly what he was doing, but you hear about, lots of opportunities in that area. For those of the listeners that aren't very deep into energy, we remember Enron and all sorts of big company names that bring it to the surface, but everybody needs energy. Every company uses energy. So particularly you, what was your interest around that? Sometimes it's proximity because that's what you grew up around. Those were the industries. But what was it that led you into the energy space?
Well, it was a pretty simple analysis of, geez, we spend a lot of money on energy, and it seems like if you do it right, there's got to be an opportunity for making a little bit of money. So there were a lot of energy companies in the Midwest, and in Wichita, there's Koch Industries. I was a Wichita State graduate. Saw how tremendously successful they were. Starting to and then seeing, you mentioned Jerry Jones. You mentioned a lot of what was going on in the oil and gas business. It was just starting to open up and provide competitive markets. If you remember, this was back in the Jimmy Carter days. So, big price volatility in the 70s, OPEC, deregulation of natural gas. So there was, even for somebody outside of the business, it was clear to see that energy was an exciting place to be. And I just thought I'd like to be a part of that in some way, shape, or form. I had an opportunity to get involved with an oil and gas company that was very entrepreneurial and growing quickly, and was able to kind of be involved in the ground floor of building the first energy marketing companies. When energy was starting to deregulate, companies were able to purchase their own natural gas. These are commercial industrial accounts that could buy third-party natural gas and transport it and ship it. For people outside of the business, it's a little bit similar to, you remember when telecom deregulated and you could buy your long distance telecom from anybody. Didn't affect how telecom service was delivered to your home. You just purchased your long distance telecom from Sprint or some other company. Energy is kind of the same way. You can buy natural gas or electricity if you're a big customer from third parties, and you can ship and transport your energy using pipelines or electricity using the grid. So that was a fascinating business for me, and saw lots of opportunity around it. It started in the 1980s. You mentioned Enron. That was kind of the go days of the 80s and 90s when energy was starting to be commoditized and traded and actively marketed, and so it was an exciting time, and I was fortunate enough to be around there. A lot of the folks that started at that time went on to build energy companies and in the deregulated energy space. So had good opportunities and to learn about the business. And so great time to grow up around the energy business.
Yeah, sounds like a gold rush time where deregulation happens and everyone can jump in and figure out what strategy could work, and if they do it right, execute and have a lot of success.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Yep, sure.
Walk me through your entrepreneurial experiences a little bit. So THD, we'll talk about THG and kind of how you came together with the group and you're leading that company now. But prior to that, were you holding VP level roles in other companies, or did you actually ever take a company, bootstrap it, and try and take it to market?
Yeah, so there were a couple of companies I was involved with prior to THG. Really learned the business just driving around in the Midwest, looking for smokestacks and calling on plant managers to purchase gas or electricity, natural gas primarily. And these I was in the steel mills and the chicken processing houses and the paper and pulp manufacturers, and this was prior to the internet. It was you'd show up and sit in the plant manager's lobby and try to take him to lunch, and so all of that kind of grew up with a sales marketing focus and helping these clients kind of with this new idea of purchasing, cheaper, better energy solutions, helping them hedge their product, helping them manage fixed price exposure around energy, which very volatile. So I got to learn by working with a lot of the big industrial customers and some really smart facility managers and energy purchasers, and saw opportunities to start a couple of businesses around the marketing and trading of energy. The one was primarily a company called Seminole Energy. I was one of the first 4 people that started that company. We in the post-Enron era, most companies were having to exit energy marketing and trading. Enron had kind of poisoned the water a little bit, and so there were a lot of companies that decided that this was not something that their shareholders wanted to support. So for about a 10-year period there was opportunities to acquire, build, and put together still very necessary energy marketing, trading, strategies for companies. And so Seminole Energy was I was one of the full partners in, and we actively grew that business and acquired a lot of these small marketing books and kind of put that into a very successful company. So prior to THG, that was really what I was focused on all the way up until 2011.
Oh, that's great.
We raised outside capital. We eventually exited that business, and it was a very successful effort around that. Grew it from 4 people to somewhere around 300 people at the time.
Wow, that's great. In that trajectory of 4 to 300, there's always ups and downs. What was the biggest challenge of getting that company off the ground and really hitting the target market?
We were always having to manage credit, and that also kind of got to why we did some things at THG that we wanted to do. So, buying a lot of natural gas and electricity, that business, marketing trading business, can be very volatile. So managing risk on a hour-to-hour, day-to-day basis around commodity volatility, making sure that you're properly hedged, and that you're helping your customers be properly hedged as well. Again, a lot of price volatility, and you're maybe at the end of the day making 1% to 2% margins on natural gas or electricity sales. So you could easily get steamrolled if you're not managing your risk properly. And every once in a while, the industry cycles through these big credit problems or cycles, and somebody gets in trouble, and it moves around the industry, and you've got to make sure that you've got good credit, good balance sheet capabilities, and So learning from all of that volatility, helped us kind of be more conservative, make sure that we were fully hedged, make sure that our customers weren't getting out over their skis, and really helping them think about energy management and energy risk. A lot of this drives toward good energy data, and that's really what was about, was helping customers really get good analysis around what their energy spend was, what their requirements are going to be, how to best purchase that energy, and how to think about opportunities for energy savings. So all those things really are derived from better data on your energy cost, your use, your spend, and over time it's getting more and more complicated as people understand. There's there are two big opportunities right now. There's distributed energy, which you can think about as solar panels or battery storage that you're installing, or EV chargers that you're having to manage. So these are all kind of, behind the meter opportunities for people to start to take control of their own energy production and consumption. And you can think about all of the data requirements that brings to what was previously a centralized utility kind of, one source for all your power. Now you've got to try to integrate solar, and maybe you have a battery solution. Maybe you need standby generation. You want to monitor that in real time. Those are all really data-rich situations where you've got to get, all that data and be able to look at it across your company and be able to manage it in a way that you didn't have to before. And the other big driver that people talk about is greenhouse gas emissions or carbon management. We introduced greenhouse gas emissions in 2019, and we were fully compliant with the greenhouse gas protocols, and we rolled it out. We spent about a year and a half testing it, and we had zero sales. We were all excited about our ability to help customers track their greenhouse gas emissions, and we couldn't convince anybody that it was important enough to do it. And so, last year it was probably 80% of our sales was around greenhouse gas emissions reporting and requirements. But it took us 5 years and we were essentially, maybe 3 or 4 years too early in developing the product and rolling it out. So, timing and a lot of this stuff is really critical. And, you can be early, and if you can survive being early, that's not a bad thing, but sometimes you're just early. You ask about experiences, and that's one of them that I've learned is, market timing and the ability to anticipate, where the market's going, and to be a little early, but not too early. So that's part of the challenges that I've tried to, pick up and learn.
Yeah, that's great. I know it's trying to understand, anticipating how far you want to build something, but it's also, business is about solving a problem. What's the problem your customer has that they can't fix, and you can bring something to them. So it sounds like in THG, you're bringing data and clarity about what their spend is and potentially how they can reduce it and manage it better. In your words, what's the problem THG is solving?
Yeah. So the two things that I kind of, talked about a little bit were, there's 6 million buildings in the United States, according to CBEX data. Maybe 5% of the customers up till now have started to report on their greenhouse gas emissions. It's not a problem for most companies. But here are the two big things that are happening in the energy, in the space is, if you've got a big customer, you're serving General Motors, or you're serving, pick a Fortune 500 customer. They're now coming to you and saying, hey, I need your greenhouse gas emissions for your product because I've got to integrate that into my sustainability reporting. So there's something called Scope 1 greenhouse gas emissions, which means It's the gas or the diesel or the propane that you consume on site. And then there's something called Scope 2, which is your electricity usage and how clean that utility or your portfolio of electricity is. And so if you're in a space where, the utility you're securing your electricity from is 40% coal and 20% wind and 30% natural gas, you've got to be able to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions from that portfolio of Scope 2 emissions. Most companies are never going to be able to do that themselves. So they've got to hire somebody to do all that math and to give them a number that extracts down to what's my pounds of CO2 that I'm consuming in my business, at my facilities. So those are called Scope 1, Scope 2 requirements, and they're pretty well established. There's a lot of things that are controversial in ESG right now, but most people agree that, hey, the basic data around Scope 1, Scope 2 reporting is important, and I'm going to have to figure it out. So 5% of the companies probably do it today. My guess is that in 3 or 4 years, 90% of the companies are going to have to do it. And it's because your supply chain's going to require it, your banker's going to require it, your investors are going to require it, or you've got the Securities and Exchange Commission has published, now requirements for, being able to report this accurately. So in the past, people have the term is greenwashed, their sustainability. Yeah, we want to be green. We want to be sustainable. Here's a picture of a kid with a flower, and here's a picture of a solar panel, and we believe in that stuff, and that's it. Now, you've got to be able to incorporate that information in your annual reports. So if you're saying, look, I'm going to reduce my greenhouse gas emissions in 2030 by 50, the question you've got to be able to answer now is, what was your baseline consumption in 2020, if that's your baseline year, and how are you going about this, and where are you today? So there's a protocol for managing all of that data that didn't exist before. And the SEC is now saying, look, you've got 2 to 4 years to kind of get your act together, but you can no longer just say, yeah, we believe in this and we're moving forward, and, not have the data. So companies are scrambling to try to understand greenhouse gas emissions, and they need help. And most of them are doing this for the first time. So that's a huge requirement and a need. And depending on where you live and how important that is to you, you may already have a fully engaged sustainability team, or you may just be, hey, I don't know, I've got to start on this process. I'm going to have to check a box. So we deal with all kinds of folks, but what we really focus on is, hey, we can help you accomplish this in a way that's cost effective and efficient and doesn't, kill the people that are trying to get their regular work done. So greenhouse gas emissions protocols are coming to almost every business and every institution across the United States, and most companies aren't very well prepared for it. So that's one big opportunity that we're really focused on. The other one...
Before you go there, I want to actually just add a couple of things. So just for the audience, sort of big picture, if you're conserving your energy and you're running a company, say a automotive company like Ford, for example, and you're using up a lot of energy, and your products that you deliver into market also might put a bunch of CO2. I'm probably missing how I'm saying this, but ultimately pollution leading to potentially global warming and impact of what the government's regulating companies to provide in terms of data, and also how much you are, basically polluting the world, if you will, or warming it up. Walk me through how this ties into your company at all. Is there this thought about regulations and the SEC saying, look, we want to see how well you're being a good, socially good company when it comes to energy. And then there's the carbon credits component to it and taxation. And how does that all tie into what you guys do, if at all?
It is, as you talked about, it's very complicated. There's a the broad overview is called ESG, or environmental social governance, and that involves a ton of different, employee miles and, diversity and all kinds of social governance reporting requirements. We're really focused on facilities and key operating energy and sustainability factors for managing those facilities. So we're primarily on energy, but it also involves water, waste, recycling. So you can think about it as what's your utility spend for water, waste, electricity, gas. What does that footprint look like that you can measure and manage? So that's one subset of a much broader energy and sustainability and social governance kind of solution. But it's the hard data side of it, and it's directly related to facilities and operations. And over time, big companies are having to reach out and integrate their entire supply chain. So the product life cycle of how to manage that in a more sustainable way. Kind of the basic math around that is, what are your facilities? How are they consuming energy, and what are you doing to try to mitigate that? Now, most companies are the best strategy around that, and the one that most companies are involved in is electrification and purchasing of renewable energy, separate and apart from what your utility might be doing. So there, you see all the time where companies are buying a wind farm, or they're buying renewable energy credits, or they're offsetting their purchases with renewable energy, nuclear, wind, solar, whatever it is. So there's ways of tracking all of that and reporting all of that, and we're engaged and we work with customers to both manage, identify what their current consumption is, and then help them track renewable energy purchasing and energy efficiency ideas to help them reduce that footprint as time goes forward.
And what's an ideal client for you, and how big are those facilities?
Yeah, so we work with customers that are managing multi-facilities. They've got lots of meters, they've got lots of energy spend, and they're trying to pull all this together in an enterprise platform. You can think about healthcare, schools, hospitals, REITs that are managing commercial real estate, manufacturing locations that have manufacturing distribution. So anybody with lots of buildings, facilities, meters, and accounts, and that could be anyone from 20 facilities up to 2,000 facilities.
Wow.
So banks, financial institutions, they're very socially plugged in. They've got a lot of branch and locations. They want to be good community partners. So, healthcare, same thing. Schools, universities, same thing. And then commercial real estate, obviously. So lots of buildings, lots of meters, lots of accounts. Those are typically who we're working with.
That's great. You guys have been in business since 2011. How big is the company today?
Yeah. So in 2011, we and up until 2019, this was just bootstrapped with friends, family, and myself. So we grew very slowly initially. We weren't sure what the requirements were. We spent a lot of time with customers trying to understand, where they saw value and what they needed and what made sense. So started with, when we acquired THG, I think they had maybe 300 accounts. So not very many, customers primarily in Texas. But they had good energy analytics. So energy cost per square foot, total energy consumption. So it was more about energy efficiency and trying to save money and structure your energy purchasing. Over time, slowly grew that. Now we've got around 20,000 active accounts in our platform. We have our eyes on around 300,000 utility accounts that we're working with to kind of turn those into full sustainability customers. So we have a lot of opportunity within our platform to really help customers develop this broader energy management and sustainability platform. But right now, they've just got electricity accounts, and they're trying to start with that process. Electricity's the most complicated, it's the most expensive, it's the most impactful. So it's a good place to start. But most of these companies don't yet have a strategy for implementing, sustainability reporting, greenhouse gas reporting. But they're going to have to figure that out over the next 3 to 5 years. We've got 30 people, started with just 3 or 4 or so, have grown steadily. We've got offices in Austin and Tulsa, Oklahoma. Data center is in Tulsa, lots of good energy people there. Engineering and operations and some of our development team is in Austin. But 30 people and, a really big runway of customers that we can work with.
That's great. Yeah. Austin's like the Silicon Valley of Texas, right? You've got all sorts of innovation. I worked for Oracle, which is based out of California. Now it's based in Texas. I think it's in Austin now. And everyone seems to be enjoying the benefits of Texas. So I don't know if Texans enjoy the benefits of Californians, but yeah, there's a lot of migration happening. So that's great. What, if you look at your company today and from when you started, what's the mission that you are providing to not just your customers, but also to your employees?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, what are you serving? What's the purpose that you feel?
We want to be good stewards. And there's I've spent most of my time in the energy space, but I also know that we can do a much better job of being sustainable and being good stewards of our environment and helping customers really on the main street, not the Wall Street, but the main street side, the broad customer engagement, help them be better energy managers and better sustainability partners. And the energy industry is undergoing this big change of having to be more accountable and more sustainable, and we're a part of that, and we're excited to be there. A lot of our customers are significantly reducing their sustainability footprint. They're really serious about being able to purchase renewable energy and a strategy of engaging to reduce their footprint. That's that. We've got a lot of challenges, in the economy overall around trying to transition to, clean renewable energy. It's going to be a bumpy road. We know there's lots of challenges going from, carbon-based to renewable energy, and the next 10 years are really going to be important. We're engaged in that. Our part of it is just giving customers, as good of data and as good of tools and resources as we can help them with in that journey. That's really what we're focused on.
That's really cool. They say the data is the new oil, and there's all sorts of solutions around taking the data and making better use of it. And there's a lot of breakthroughs right now with AI and how that makes sense for multiple industries. How do you see, and do you see AI as being a value to your current platform or in the future?
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of concern around AI nowadays. But when I look at it, I think that, we can accommodate much more management of data. And if there were an AI that could, in real time, babysit each of the facilities, what their consumption was, look at history and peer groups and look for analysis of, variances and manage that in real time. When, today a building manager has no capability of doing that. We are in so much more of a sophisticated and data-rich environment. I'll give you just one example. So, obviously you get a monthly utility bill. So you get, for one electric meter, you get 12 bills a year, right? But, with hourly data, you get 87 intervals a year. And with real-time data, who knows? You should get data every 15 minutes. So, you go from 12 data points a year to 8,700 data points a year to, 50,000 data points a year. And that's just 1 meter, right? So you want to manage that in real time. There's a lot more data that you got to look at and manage. And it's impossible to do that without some kind of AI solution that's actively looking at, market, grid conditions, real-time price, consumption, demand, all of those things that need to be smartly integrated. So, we've been working on projects to help our clients be more energy-wise, if you will, looking at smart meter data in particular, which interval data that we've talked about. So, lots of customers now have access to, 15-minute power data, and they have no mechanism for being able to manage that in an effective way. And the utilities are the same way. They've had smart meter data around for 20 years. They're not really doing that much with it. So the opportunity to smartly manage that and look at all of the variables is something that an AI system can do in real time across a few million buildings. That's a great opportunity for for the energy business. We're in a great spot because we've got a huge amount of data. Now, a lot of it is customer data that is, consumption, use, facility information. So a big platform of data that, smart meter data. So we get more than 200,000 accounts updated nightly for smart meter access. That all of that is just ready for a broader engagement through AI. So we're excited about it. There's obviously a lot of risks and opportunities, and we're kind of in a brave new world of AI, clearly. But there's good opportunities there, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we were on a call last week, and we're talking with a company called Scale AI. Not sure if you've heard of them, but they're on Forbes. Alexander Wang's on Forbes this month, kind of like providing the tools to the gold miners during the gold rush. And so they raised $600 million. They're absolutely, yet when it comes to providing services around companies that are looking to utilize AI but not sure how to do it, or you have a bunch of data and you're trying to figure out how to train it, and they have some really easy ways to go about the process, some self-serve tools, and also some paid services and whatnot that can help. But it seems like there's some real clarity now about how to approach it, whereas before it was a black box and you weren't sure what it meant and how to use it. But it's coming along pretty good with a lot of the breakthroughs that are out there now. So should be real interesting to see how that goes. Curious to follow back up with you when that happens.
Yeah, we're in a very exciting time right now, for sure. I mean, at the economy is, the technology is, it's it's a really an exciting time. People are concerned about it, but I'm more optimistic about it.
Yeah, that's great. Looking at your platform, if you're a facility out there and you're wanting to utilize it, what's it take to start using it to structure a deal? Like, is it a monthly basis? Is it a license fee? How do they use your platform?
Yeah, well, first of all, we work a lot with industry partners. So these would be companies that are, maybe they're an electricity provider, maybe they're a broker, an aggregator, a consultant, or somebody that's advising commercial customers on their energy strategies. And they bring us portfolios of customers. So they a common situation is there's a broker, advisor, or consultant that helps with purchasing strategies, and they might have a school or a hospital that they've helped purchase electricity for, and maybe they're wanting to look at renewable energy or some other strategy for reducing their emissions. So that's where we engage. We're kind of the data and technology partner with that industry's offering. A lot of times it's private labeled, so you don't see THG, you see somebody else, but we're the platform that helps operate that. So you log into your advisor's website, and their name, their label, white labeled, but it's our platform. So we work with a lot of industry partners, and that's really where a lot of our customers come from. But we start with the utility data, and a school or a hospital would come to us and they say, we've never pulled together all of our data in one spot. We have a general ledger. We kind of know how much we pay, but we don't have any of the other data that we need. So, if you're going to report on your greenhouse gas emissions, you've obviously got to know your usage, and your demand, and each of those has different units of measure. So, most people look at their general ledger and they go, well, I know I spent $3 million on utilities, but I have no idea where, how, or who, or anything else. So it's a fact-finding process for us. Usually, if the customer's engaged, it's about a 90-day process for us to access all of those utility accounts, be able to start to download the data, get the permissions that we need to get that on an ongoing basis. A lot of companies are having to manually enter their utility data. We digitally access most of the data. About 90% of the data comes through electronic access. So we can streamline that process, highly reliable, much easier, cheaper, faster, help pay and process the utility bills, and at the same time, gather all of this data that customers are needing, often now for the first time. So that's really what our process looks like. It's 90 days to 120 days to take all of the accounts, integrate them into a single platform, water, waste, gas, electricity. Starts with the monthly utility bill. On the electricity side, a lot of the bigger accounts are now getting smart meter data or interval data. So we help onboard that and analyze that and provide tools for doing a better job of looking at your smart meter data. And then a lot of companies have sub-meters or smart meters or thermostats or building automation systems or some kind of other IoT data that they want to pull into the same kind of platform. So we help with that. A lot of third-party data that we just have to go get. Utilities are kind of their own silos of information. So we gather data from around 1,300 utilities in the United States right now. All of those have their own systems, their own processes, their own units of measure. It's shocking how little standardization there is in the space, but really you've got to kind of figure out each one of those and how they report it and what their processes are. So being able to provide that in a single pane of glass, if you will. A single enterprise platform is a big data challenge. You'd asked previously around what some of our biggest challenges were. It's that, it's not the UI. It's not just building, the customer facing side of it. It's getting all of that data in an accurate, complete, timely basis and being able to validate it all. That's really where 80% of the work of our business is. And there's not a lot of companies that are doing it in a way that we do it. We're trying to be very diligent around data validation and, try to integrate best practices and Six Sigma processes. And there's a lot of people that are a lot smarter than me in the business that are helping us with, data scientists and folks that looking at the data in new ways and helping to validate it in a better way.
Seems like you're ready for AI.
Actually, lots of data, lots of opportunities for AI.
Yeah, that's great. What motivates and inspires you? You've been with this company, you've been leading this company since the beginning. It sounds 2011. What motivates you and inspires you and keeps you inspired every day?
Yeah, I mean, I love our mission. I like helping companies be more accountable and be good stewards. We have a great team of people. I get to work with my son, who's on the team as well, and other family members, and so it's still a small company. Most of the people, almost 75% of people, have been with us for more than 5 years. So we've got good, longevity, good experience, just good folks. I enjoy our team a lot. And we're getting, it's really hard to get above $1 million in revenue and then above $2 million. That's these are really hard things to do, get to scale and get through that process, the desert of engagement and commercialization and scale that most entrepreneurs and companies have to struggle with, is getting from, your first sale to, viability is, was hard for us. It's hard for a lot of folks in the energy space. But we're now to a point where we see a lot of value in our services. We can really start to make a difference for companies that are trying to execute on a sustainable strategy. We're a core part of that, and got a great team of people that we get to work with. So that helps me get up every morning and be excited about what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. What's the future? Where do you see where you're at today and where you can go in terms of what's that compelling journey and vision look like for you? Like, where do you see this going in 3, 5, 10 years? What can it be?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit about it, but as the economy transitions toward renewable energy and moves away from kind of traditional base load energy, there's a lot of challenges, and there's solar. Obviously, sun keeps going down every day. Wind. These are variable renewables, and you're trying to replace that base load coal, natural gas generation. There's a lot of challenges associated with that, and companies are trying to figure out, okay, I've got an EV chargers that I've got to put in for my employees, and I want to put solar on my roof, and I want to install batteries, and I want to buy renewable energy and help manage that. So there's a huge transition of centralized base load coal-based power to what will ultimately be 100% renewable energy, and all of the grid integration and all of the opportunities for that, and investment in distributed energy helping customers transition in a way that's smart, cost effective, saves them money, is practical. We're all about that. And the companies that we work with, they know that they've got to be more broadly focused. So an opportunity to expand from maybe what used to be just a provider of electricity to now a provider of, sustainability, funding energy management, funding solar projects, funding battery projects, integrating with the grid. So there's a whole lot of things that we're going to have to do much better as an economy if we're going to be successful in this kind of green transition. And there's a lot of folks that are working on it. Data is going to be a huge part of it. So all of that is moving at a quick pace and getting quicker every day. It's kind of like AI. If you're going to wait around for it, you're probably not not going to be able to catch the bus, because this thing's not slowing down. It's speeding up. So it's just an exciting time to be in the space, and there's great opportunities to work with companies and partner with people that are trying to do the good things.
That's great. Really cool. You've shared a lot about business and what you're building today. As a founder myself of a few different ventures, I know there's a lot of ups and downs. You talked about being ahead of the market and trying to anticipate where your clients are and where the market might go. Sometimes you're a little too ahead and maybe sometimes a little too far behind. What's a story that you can share that you really learned from that you can take with you going forward, whether it's with this company or maybe even future companies that you decide to build, that really had an impact when you went through it, but also a good lesson you left with when you came out of it?
Yeah, we are constantly looking at our product offering, and it's almost every day a customer comes to us and says, hey, we want you to do this thing that's different from what we're doing. And so we got to decide, what are we good at? Because there's a whole universe of things that we could be doing in the space around utility reporting, energy management, sustainability, scope 3 reporting. This has a very broad universe of requirements. So being able to stay focused and stay on task and say, no, we're really good at this part of this, and we're not good at this part. And I'll give you an example. We had to go find a partner that does waste, because waste, recycling waste, tracking that is its own rabbit hole. It's its own, universe. And yeah, you can do kind of a summary level analysis of that. But if you're going to be really good at waste and recycling and product streams and medical waste and being able to track all that and manage it, and that's a whole different product offering. So, one of our customers, big hospital, came to us and said, we like what you're doing on the energy side. We want you to do something similar for us in the waste and recycling side. And we had to say no. We had to say, no, we're not going to do that. We've got a partner that we can work with that can really help you on the waste side, but we're going to stay really focused on energy and sustainability from that perspective, which has 100 requirements, and we've got to really focus on that to be good at it. So I think there's always a constant lesson around what are you good at? Where do you see the best customer value? What are you going to or force yourself not to do that somebody's trying to get you to do that may be tangential to what your core values are? So there's always a constant, and we've got 50 things in the development queue, and so we're trying to prioritize those and to rationalize what are the customer requirements, what can we generically deploy, what's a one-off that we just shouldn't be doing. So those kinds of things almost every day it's a trying to fine tune that process. And there's been times when we've overreached, and there's been other times when we said, geez, we shouldn't have done what we did, or we should have focused on it. Like I said, we started the greenhouse gas emissions protocols and compliance in 2017, and then we sat there for 3 years with virtually no sales around it. So tinkered with it. We were begging people. We had to do beta tests with customers. We were trying to get it engaged. We really had to wait for the market to catch up and say, okay, this is now important. We got to go do this. And we would have thought that would have occurred, 5 years prior to when it actually did. But so being able to be disciplined around what your product fit is and what you're good at and what you need to be focused around versus what might be, what somebody wants, but maybe you're not the best at it. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's something that we are always trying to rationalize.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. And I think, I think it happens to a lot of founders where you build something and you hope they come. And I think it should be the reverse, where you sit down with your customers or prospects and truly understand what is it they want, what's not working today, what could you do differently that would make your business run better, what solution can then you create that can help them, and takes a lot of the guesswork out of it. You also have to have the right prospects you're talking to that are open to sharing what problems they're facing. But I think that it sounds like you've done a really good job of being clear about what it is that they eventually did want. Now you're serving that to them. So that's really good. If you're a founder or an aspiring startup leader in the market today, what's a couple words of advice that you would share with someone who's maybe just thinking about bootstrapping, or maybe they just got their funding and they're on their early stage of trying to make something happen? What's some advice you could share?
I tell people I'm on the 10th year of my 3-year business plan. So, if I were to rewind all this, I would have spent a lot more time. Just what you talked about is getting in front of customers and trying to truly understand where their value proposition is. I think I see a lot of people in our space that maybe they were in a some college class that they thought that they should be able to fix sustainability, or they wanted to build a product that helped this, and there's 300 of them that we see every day that they're not going to get to a customer solution that people are willing to pay for, and so being able to understand that. And luckily, we've been able to work with some really smart customers and some really professional, experienced teams of people to help us kind of fine tune what that offering is. If I were to do this all over again, I would have spent a lot more time testing out my beliefs and concepts and not being. I think everybody's afraid of sharing an idea because somebody might steal it, or you don't want to talk about it too much or whatever. I would say, look, spend as much time with as many people as you can around what your product ideas are, especially if they're in the business that you're trying to get in, and really try to rationalize and hone down what are the essential elements of that, and is there a business plan that you can actually sell and collect on, and somebody's willing to pay for where they see value? Because a lot of these guys, and I was guilty of the same thing, is they've got a good idea, but the market integration of that and being able to get it to scale is just impossible. And they don't have a viable strategy for getting there. So I would say, if I were to go back, I would give a lot more thought to, how are we going to get this to scale, and what are the, not what I think, but what are key customers that I hope to sell to, what are their thoughts around this? And that's, so talk to more people that are in the space that can help you, and don't feel like, hey, I've got to just, take my own beliefs and turn that into a business plan. You got to have both. You got to have some commitment. You got to be stubborn around things. You got to just push through things for sure. But, starting out with a really solid idea, that is as much market testing as you can do.
Yeah, that's great. I think that really rings true for a lot of companies, and, a lot of innovation that happens. You have to really understand what you're trying to build to solve the problem, and then you go build it. So that's great. Dan, you've had an amazing career, and I love the company you're creating and building, and it sounds like you're past the startup phase for sure, and you're continuing to scale it out, which is really cool. Love to hear how things go over the next couple of years, but thanks for joining our podcast today here. We will look forward to the future and what that brings for you and for our listeners. Sounds like if they want to find you, they can go to a specific website, or what's the best way for them to learn more about you?
Yeah, there's a contact me at thgenergy.com. Happy to, reach out to people. We're pretty small, so, pretty easy to find me. I'm on LinkedIn as well, so feel free, but thgenergy.com and a contact me is a really good way, and we're really responsive to that. So got a great team of folks, and we're excited about being able to work with a lot of customers. So good opportunities in the energy management sustainability space right now, and we're happy to be a part of it.
Great. Well, thanks for joining, and until the next time, we'll keep plugging away here.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate your time.
Okay. See you, Dan.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Before we wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to all the entrepreneurs that have joined to make this podcast possible, and for all the listeners for listening. It means the world to me that you chose to spend your time with us today. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to connect with you all soon on the next episode. Take care. This show is sponsored by Match Relevant, a company that helps venture-backed startups find the best people in the market, and they do it in 3 simple steps. First, they sit down with founders to understand their story. Second, they tell their story into multiple candidate channels. And third, they schedule interviews within 48 hours. Find us at matchrelevant.com to learn more about how we do it.